Hello there. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Hanna-col. It's been a little while since I've posted a video, I do realize. I think my last video was towards the middle of January. I know it was right before the my next semester of school started. I'm currently on my spring break between those two semesters. My next classes start up next week. So while I cannot promise a ton of videos during the semester, mostly because I'm taking a second language class, which keeps me very busy as I try to learn French, which is exciting and intimidating at the same time because I've always wanted to learn French, but also I've never learned a second language before, so it's kind of scary, especially when your degree is dependent on you passing a 200 level second language class. So I will be sparse during the school semester. However, I have been managing to get quite a bit of reading done so far this year. My overarching goal for 2022 as far as reading goes is I would love to be able to read 40 books this year. I feel like that's close enough to my preschool reading average that it makes me feel like I'm getting more books in, which is nice after a very few years of very dry reading spells of not getting much reading done, and then just being sad about that, and then feeling like you're not getting anything done, and then getting depressed. So very nice to be actually getting some reading done. Last year, as I've said before, very successful reading year for me. I read 38 books. So 40 this year, even though I'm still doing school all year round, seems manageable. And audiobooks are your friend. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. So in this video, we are going to talk about the books I have read so far this year. We're going to talk about all the books I read in January, all the books I read in February, the books I've read so far this month during my break and throughout the semester, this past semester, and then I'm going to do a quick rundown on what I'm reading right now. Alright, so as I talked about, did I talk about it in my last video? I don't remember. I believe I talked about starting this book in my last video. I would have to go back and check to see if I did. Un momento, let me go check real fast because I don't remember. That's when you know it's been a busy year and we're only 2 months in, is when I don't remember what the heck I talked about. I did talk about it in my last video. Okay. Yes, I started off the year by finishing up a book I started in December, which was The Summer Before the War by Helen Simonson. World War I historical fiction, more on a literary bent. Very much enjoyed. Loved a great deal. Very much recommend. So, that was the first book I finished in January. Next book I read and finished in January before the school semester started is an Agatha Christie, The Seven Dials Mystery by Agatha Christie, which, it's like a continuation to which one? It features characters from another one, which I read, but I'm trying to remember the name of the other one. Oh, The Secret of Chimneys? Yes, The Secret of Chimneys. It features characters that first appeared in The Secret of Chimneys, which is another Agatha Christie mystery novel. That one I read years ago. I would have to go onto Goodreads to figure out exactly when I read that one. So this features characters from that book. The beginning takes place at Chimneys, the big house, the big country house. And that first one features the beginning of this. It's got more of like an espionage flavor to it rather than straight up whodunit that is pretty typical of Agatha Christie's. And it doesn't feature Miss Marple or Hercule Poirot. It's more of a standalone-esque with connections to other characters. I enjoyed it. Wasn't the greatest. It didn't do it for me the same way most of the Hercule Poirot books have done. That's definitely my favorite of Agatha Christie's series and books, although I've not read many. I think I've only read one Miss Marple, so I can't really testify to how I feel about Miss Marple. But enjoyable, not the greatest, not the worst. Yeah, nice in the middle if you're feeling like an Agatha Christie, but you don't want anything too intense. Next up, this one I started during my break before the spring semester started, and then I ended up switching over to audiobook and finishing it off via audiobook on my way to and from work, and that is 1984 by George Orwell. After far too long, I have finally read this dystopian political classic. And it's a lot. And it's kind of depressing. But it is good. And it's a classic for a reason. And I do recommend reading it. Otherwise, I don't have a ton of thoughts to share for it. Do with that what you will. This one, I started reading it, and then I discovered my library had a CD audiobook of it, which was very exciting because it's narrated by the author. And if you know the author, you know that's a great choice for this book. So we rented the audiobook and we read The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green, which was very, very enjoyable. This book, I feel like, yes, it would be very nice to read in small nuggets, like an essay here and there, slowly over time. It definitely caters to that type of reading experience. But also, if you're familiar with the John Green's podcast, which is where he wrote most of these essays for that podcast, if you've listened to that and you're familiar with that, listening to this book on audiobook is a very satisfying experience because it's John Green's voice narrating them for you, and it's like the podcast, but it's a book, and it's relaxing because it's like you're still listening to the podcast, but it's a book. Very much enjoyed this. I feel like this is going to be one of those books where you're really going to like it if you enjoyed the podcast. If you have never listened to the podcast and you don't know what you're getting yourself into, it's a memoir-esque rather than a straight up essay collection, as John Green reviews places and things. He reviews those mostly through the lens of his experiences with them and his memories with them, and in that way it is a memoir of sorts, which I really enjoyed. Then next up, this one I listened on audiobook again, driving to and from work. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, especially during the school semester because I have
a fairly distance drive to get to where I work. So that's a very good way to get audiobooks in. And then there's some other occasions where it's like,
ooh, I got an hour. I'm just doing a repetitive task. I can listen to an audiobook and be more productive. And so I read the next book in the Flavia de Luce mystery series by Ellen Bradley, and that is A Red Herring Without Mustard. Again, I actually own a copy of this book, but I listened to it via audiobook nonetheless. And I really liked the narrator they had for this book, so I may actually continue this series by listening to the audiobooks on Libby if they have them, because I really liked the narrator and the way she brought the story to life. As far as mystery goes, I don't know. This one felt less whodunit-ish compared to the previous two books in this series, and more focused on Flavia as a character rather than her solving the mystery, which kind of makes it like less successful as a whodunit and mystery book. But because I really enjoy the character, Flavia as a character, and the setting and the characters in the series, I didn't mind. I really like character-driven books, so it weirdly worked for me. It almost made me want to continue reading the rest of the series just for the characters and whatnot, more so than being actual mysteries. It was almost more successful in making me want to continue doing that and reading the series than the book I read last year, which was the second book in the series. Can't explain it, that's where I'm at. The next book I read, just as my break ended, was Sheets by Brenna Thummler. This is the first graphic novel I've ever read, and I really enjoyed it. Illustrations are absolutely beautiful, stunning. Story was sweet and heartwarming and just a bit heartbreaking, and I really enjoyed, and I'm interested in locating and finding the sequel book to it, which is Delicates, I think. But roughly speaking, girl named Marjorie runs a laundromat in a little small town called Finster Bay, and she is grieving the death of her mother and learning to sort of accept that and move on while still remembering her mother and learning to live with the grief. And it's very heartbreaking and sweet, but also moving as she then meets and interacts with the ghost Wendell, who ends up helping her keep her laundromat. Very sweet, very much enjoyed. Great introductory graphic novel experience. And if you have any other graphic novel recommendations, please drop them below, because I don't really know where to begin. The last book, or the most recent book I finished, was The Pearl by John Steinbeck, which is a very short read, which is nice if you're trying to get a lot of books in. And I love John Steinbeck's writing, so I thought that would be a good choice. But, fair warning, this book is very depressing. Very sad ending. I don't want to give you spoilers, but did we really have to do that? I mean, okay, let's back up a bit here. I fell in love with John Steinbeck's writing when I read East of Eden 4 years ago now, something like that. And this book, I still loved his writing in this book. He's a very good writer, which is why I very much want to read through all the books John Steinbeck has written, because I think he's an amazing writer. He's a fantastic writer. The prose in this book is great. the way he uses songs to bring the writer in. Writer? Don't know where that came from. The way he uses songs to bring the reader into the character and the emotions they're experiencing and the things they're noticing about others. It's very nice in this book. I just did not appreciate how sad and depressing it was, especially the ending. And so for the sake of spoilers, I will not tell you, but my dear friend John, did we really have to go there? I don't think so. I think we could have told a very effective story with this same plot without having to do what you did at the ending. So there. Okay, that's my thoughts on all the books I've read so far in this year. Yay. Going on to the ones I'm reading currently. We have another Steinbeck, Travels with Charley. First of all, this has been on my radar since I read East of Eden. I bought this copy at Half Price Books last spring, I think. But I never actually got around to reading it last year. I finished reading The Pearl. Very happy to experience Steinbeck's writing again, but very upset by that ending. I listened to the Books Unbound podcast by Ariel Bissett a few weeks ago, and they happened to bring up this book, and it reminded me of it. And so I started it last weekend before work, and I'm very happy. Again, Steinbeck's amazing writing, except this way it's more of a memoir-esque, describing him as he's packing up his camper in a truck, taking his poodle Charley, and setting out to road trip across America to rediscover the country he writes about. I'm about 50 pages in, and I'm loving every second of it so far. More reflective, memoir-esque-ish of sorts. Travel memoir? Maybe? I think travel memoir would be a better descriptor of it. So far, loving it very much, and I just kind of want to take it slow and not devour it too quickly and savor it. That's that. And then we're also working our way through another poetry collection by Mary Oliver, which is Devotions. I read my first poetry collection by Mary Oliver last year when I was trying to get a lot more into poetry and actively choosing to read poetry and then trying to understand how it worked as an art form. We're still figuring that part out, but we're going to keep reading. Let me see which collection is the one I read last year. Yeah. A Thousand Mornings. That's the one I read last year, and I did really enjoy it. So we're slowly working our way through this one, which is more of a collection of the selected poems of Mary Oliver. That's what I have read so far this year in January and February. That's what I'm currently reading. Let me know if you've read or enjoyed any of the books I've mentioned in this video in a comment down below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see more videos similar to this, go ahead and subscribe, I guess. Yes. I can't promise you content every week. That is my dream. It's just not practical with school. But I will do the best I can. And I will for sure upload a video on my breaks. Hopefully more than that. We'll see. I am hoping at some point here soon to do a video on the books I'm excited for in 2022 and the rest of this year. It's potentially going to be new releases and books I already own, but I would really love to read this year. Yeah. So I guess that's all for right now, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!